Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's ClaritySoft Focus Training. I'm Susan Arnold, Implementation Specialist here at ClaritySoft, and this week's topic is Access Profiles and UI Templates. This is a brand new webinar we have put together at the request of some of our customers, so hopefully you will learn a lot today. And I have a lot of topics to cover, so we will go ahead and get started. Access profiles in ClaritySoft are what allow you to control what the users see in the database. You can work with the built-in access profiles. You also can create your own custom ones. And along with the access profile goes what we call our UI or user interface template. And the user interface template allows you to then control what fields of data each user sees in a record. And so for each access profile that you can have a different user interface template. So today we're going to walk through that process, first of all, of understanding what the different types of access profiles are and how they work. Then I will show you how to set them up with a user, and we'll be logging in and out of my demo database so you can see the results of the different access profiles. And then we will create a custom one to show you how that works and apply it to different users. And then along with that, we will create a custom user interface template so you can see how that works. So by the end of the time, you should be very comfortable with understanding what access profiles are, how they work, and how to set them up in your database. Before we move forward, I did want to mention that we do have a Q&A panel in Zoom meeting. If, while I'm explaining things, you have a question, please type it in the Q&A panel, and I will hopefully see it there on my second monitor and answer the question. So don't hesitate to type them there. I also do want to mention that the access profiles and being able to work with them is something that only an admin user in the ClaritySoft database can do. So if you are not an admin user, you won't see the same things in your settings, but you certainly can speak to your admin user and explain what you've learned today. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I have logged into my demo database, and for my access profile that I have in my ClaritySoft here, it is an all access profile, which means I can see all the records in the database no matter who the owner is. The owner field in ClaritySoft is what controls what the person sees. To get to access profiles, click on the settings button, and then you go to users and access. And in here, when you're first setting up your database, you will enter all the different users that you have, and you can see here that you will assign each user to a profile. And then according to what profile that user has, when that user logs in, that user will see only certain records. Anyone who has an all access profile will see all records. Anyone who has an individual access profile will see only their own records in the database. And let me go over here and click on access profiles, and here is where you have a list of all the different ones. As I just said, all means you can see all records. Individual means you can see only your own records. Manager means that if you are set as a manager profile in the database, then in the user record there is a reports to field, and we'll look at this shortly. You assign different people to report to the manager. And when the manager logs in, the manager is able to see his or her own records plus the records of those people who report to him or her. then the users underneath the manager would be set to individual and they would see their own records. You also can then create yet another option called a group where maybe you want that team to see each other's records, and we will talk about that. The team access profile we don't use anymore. This is a legacy profile from our offline version, so you don't need to use that or want to use that anymore. And we have replaced that with groups. And over here you can see the option for user groups, which we will also talk about today. And then terminated, what that means, if someone from your organization leaves, you don't go in and delete them as a user in the database. You go into their user record and mark them as being terminated. There is also a checkbox in the user record for deactivating. And what this does is it deactivates the user in the database. However, their name will remain there and still be associated with all the activities they've done, opportunities they've created, and the account and contact records that belong to them, which you then can go ahead and reassign those once you have a new person come on board. But it also cuts off their access to your database. So this is something you want to make sure that you do if someone does leave, is that you go in and set them to be terminated and deactivated so that they no longer can access your database. And then, as I said, we can create custom ones, which we will do shortly. So what I want to do here is, as you've seen, I'm in here as an all, which means I can see all 305 records in my demo database. I'm going to log out and log in as Allison, and I don't know if you noticed, but she is set to be an individual user. So when I log in as Allison, I now see, or Allison sees, only her own records. She will not see anyone else's records in the database, and you can see that down here Allison has access to 31 of the 305 records. So an individual access only allows that person to see his or her own records. And when you go to some of the filters at the top where it says select users, she's not going to see all the users in the database because she's only allowed to see herself. So this is what the individual access will do. And one of the things when you're setting up your database, if you're not really sure how you want to set it up, you could set up all your users to see all records in the database, and then you could get it down from there. A lot of times when you set people up to see all records in the database and they log in, one of the first things people might say is, well, how do I see only my own records? And then you can take it from there. And so that's, an easy way to start. Notice too that I logged out as myself, I logged in as Allison. So when you're setting things up, you can test your setup very easily by logging out, logging in as the user that you're testing for, so you're making sure that that user is seeing exactly what you want that user to see in the database, okay? All right, so let me log out as Allison because Allison doesn't have admin rights, and I want to make a change. So far we've seen the all access profile and the individual, which you're probably the most familiar with. So I'm going to go to settings and go to users and access. And what I want to do, I have a user here, Kelly Sales. She currently is an all access profile. I'm going to change her to manager because I'm going to make her a manager. So I'm going to open her record, and you can open this record two ways. You can click on the blue link here for the login name, or you can click on the row action button over here and go to edit. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine. So I'm going here and I'm going to change her profile to manager. Go down and save. All right, now I need to have some people report to Kelly. So I'm going to take Allison here and Bob Sellers, and I'm going to have them report to Kelly. So right here is the reports to field, and I can pick Kelly. Save. And then I'm going to go to Bob and have him report to Kelly and save. So now I'll log out and log in as Kelly. And when we log in, Kelly should see her own records, Allison's records, and Bob's records. I just saw one go by. Where'd it go? There it is. So she now can see her own records, and then she can see those records of the people that report to her. Now, Allison and Bob at this point only see their own records. They don't see Kelly's, even though they report to Kelly, so they can't see upward to Kelly, and they only see their own records. Now, if we wanted to have Bob and Allison see each other's records, because they're on the same team, so to speak, then we can make a change for them. So, because Kelly's an admin user, I can make that change. And this is where what we call user groups come in. I go back here to users and access again. So it's settings, users and access. And then we have user groups. Now let me open one of a record here for just 1 second. In here we've got the profile, which we've set to individual. But then further down, if you've been setting up users, you've noticed member of groups, visibility to groups, and visibility to users. So this member of groups, when you create a user group, you then can assign a user to be a member of a specific group. Then anyone who's a member of a group can see each other's records in that group. So they can be a member of a group, but they also could have visibility into another group. Or you can have visibility to a specific user. So I could do this one of two ways. I could say, well, Allison here has visibility to Bob. And then I could go to Bob and say he has visibility to Allison. Then they could see each other's records with no problem. Or if I know that it's possible I might add other people to their team, I can create a group. So I go to user groups, click add, and I'm going to make them the inside sales team. I'll make it enabled. And then I actually can assign the members right here. So I can say Allison and Bob are the members of this group. Then I can go back to my users and notice that Allison is now a member of Inside Sales. So when you set it in the user groups, it automatically sets it in the user record for you. And now you can see you have member of a group, Inside Sales, but you also have Inside Sales listed here, because if you add additional groups, then you can pick and choose who can see what into which groups. All right. Okay, Jill is asking if a member of user group also see manager's records. The only way that they would be able to see the manager's records is if the manager was made a member of the group or the manager's name was checked down here in visibility to users. Otherwise not. Okay. So if I save this, and now if I log out and log back in as Allison, then Allison should see her records, and we should see Bob's records too. Why are we not? Let me log out again. Let me log in as Bob. Oh no, see, things always don't work, even though you tested them. Oh, let's see what I do here. Okay, we'll go back to Allison because now my login isn't working. Sorry, folks. All right. I did something incorrect. All right. Well, we'll move forward and come back to that. All right. Oops, I'm in as Allison. I don't have admin rights. Okay, so I'm back to my all access profile as Susan in here. So let me see here. So we did the manager profile. We saw that Kelly can see her records plus the people who report to her. So if I added another person to report to her, then she would be able to see that third person. So that's what you use when you're setting up the manager profile. And then now let's try this method here. I'm going to go to Allison again. And she is a member of Inside Sales. I'm going to take her off of the Inside Sales group, and then I'm going to come down here and say that she can see another user named Larry. So here I'm saying she's not a member of a group. She is an individual user, and she has visibility into one other user, Larry. So let me save that. Log out. Log in as Allison. So now she's seen 36 records, which is good. That means Larry's in here. So now she can see Larry's records, okay? So that one worked. I'm not sure why the other one didn't. We'll come back to it. So again, you can put them in a group and have them see each other's records, or you can do it individually and control. Or a person can be a member of a group and then see another person as an extra person. So again, just sit down and think through how you want all your users to see information in the database, and then you can figure it out, put it in, test it to make sure they're seeing what they want. So you can begin to see then that this owner field is very important when you are bringing data in so that the records are assigned to the correct user. If you're going to see all records in the database, then the owner doesn't matter to begin with, but if you're going to control it in some way, then it really does matter, okay? Now, let's say we want to create a custom access profile, okay, which allows us to control things like what modules does the person see, what rights in the database do they have as far as whether they can delete a record, whether they can see or delete shared records that don't belong to them, but they can see. So you have controls there. And then also we can control, as I said before, through the user interface template, what fields they actually see. So in here, I'm just opening this account record. We have different fields here, and these are just the standard fields. I have a couple of custom fields here and a custom field over here. So just kind of take a little mental picture of this, and then we're going to create a custom access profile. And then over here too, you'll want to see what they have. So I'm going to log out as Allison, log back in as myself. Oops. And go to my settings and go to users and access, and then access profiles. All right, so let's say that I would like to create an access profile for the inside sales team. And again, depending on what groups or other teams you set up, you can name them for whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to click the Add button, and I'm going to call this Inside Sales, maybe Inside Sales Team. And sometimes what I like to do with that, with the name, I like to put which type of access profile it is. I might preface it with all. I can preface it with IND for individual. And then that way I know when I look at the name of the access profile which data access type it is to begin with. And then you can type a description if you want. Here you set salesperson. This means that the person will be looked at as a salesperson in the database, and wherever there are reports that are pulling data for sales people, it will pull anyone with this profile. Lead manager in the access profile means that if you're using the leads module and the person goes into the leads module, as a lead manager, that person would be able to assign leads to different people. So maybe in this case, we don't want this, all right? Someone will assign it for the inside sales team. Then here, this is a little bit difficult to see here. This is where you are controlling what type of access you have. So I'm going to set it to individual. And then down here is a list of all the different modules that you have access to in your database. And what I have here is probably a longer list than you might have, so don't worry about it. But this is where you control whether you can see it. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to say we don't need to see the sales module because when we make a sale, it goes over to our accounting system. So we don't have sales, but we want to see accounts, contacts, and everything else. And then down here, I'm going to turn all these off because these are ones that I don't need to see. So that tells me now when I log in as a person who has this profile, they won't see the fields that are unchecked, and they will see those modules that are. Then the next column here, create. This means that the user can create new records. Well, for the most part, you definitely want them to be able to create new records in the database. Okay, I'll just turn that off. It should be off automatically. Then edit your own. This means that you can edit any records where you are the owner. All right. Delete your own. This one I would turn off everything except activities and calendar. Now you can, if this poses a problem, you can come back in and turn it on. Deleting is a bit dangerous because, especially if you delete an account, you're not only going to delete the account record, you're going to delete everything associated with that account. So that's going to be all contacts, opportunities, quotes, etc. So maybe until your people are used to using the database, you don't give them delete rights. There is a message that pops up that says what you're going to do, but being the humans that we are, we don't always read those messages carefully, and we just say, yeah, okay, and then suddenly all these records are gone. All right, and then editing shared, what this would mean is if, and I'm going to use Allison and Bob as an example, they're both individuals in the database and they can't see each other's records, but it's possible there might be an account that they work together on, and so whoever owns it can share it with the other person. And then that person can see the record. If that person can also edit the record, the person could make changes to the phone number and the address and that kind of information. If the person can't edit the record, then the person can see the record, the data is there and visible but grayed out so they can't edit it. However, the person can add activities and opportunities and things like that. So again, to perhaps protect, well, maybe, maybe they'll share on an opportunity. So, you again can decide how this is going to work, all right? And then the same thing with delete shared, you probably don't want them to be able to delete any shared records, all right? Activities and calendar, you should give people the ability to delete just because they might need to delete an appointment or something like that. So that would definitely be there. All right, other tabs here. Feature access. Mass email. This allows a person to send emails out from within ClaritySoft to more than one person. You probably want to give them that. Export to Excel allows them to select records and then export that list out to Excel. That, again, depending on how you work, they may need that. Merging accounts and contacts. If there's a duplicate account record in there that got in there accidentally, you can merge the two together to create one. You can also merge contacts. That you'd have to decide. Do you want the people to do that, or do you want to manage that yourself? Have them report it to you. Importing. This one, probably want to control importing yourself, just to be sure people aren't putting in, records and muddying up the database. So you might want to control that. Group edit. This allows people to select more than one record at a time and make a change to a field for all the records. I think that's useful, especially if they're updating status or an industry type or something like that. Group edit can really save them a lot of time. Managing products, probably not. This would be if you have a product list in your database. It would allow them to go to settings and add new products in the product list. You probably don't want everyone to be able to do that. And then advanced report is another type of report besides the reports and Excel reports. Again, maybe you've got somebody that can do these kinds of reports, so you can leave it on. If you've turned on the marketing module, you do have control over who can use the marketing module. So this is nice from that standpoint. Report permission. This allows people to see and run reports for the different modules. So if you're not using the sales module, you could turn that off. Okay, so for any modules where they are not visible, you would want to turn off report access, and then everything else you would leave on. And then again, this would allow people to create new reports for themselves, edit the reports, and delete. So this, depending on what you want people to be able to do, you would set, if you're going to be the main one to create all the reports, then you could turn off, the create, the edit, and the delete. So that will be a decision on your part as an admin user. Then sales stage access. This feeds into the opportunities module. And what we've done here is given you the ability to create 2 different sets of sales stages, or more actually, depending on an access profile. So for example, here we have an inside sales team and an outside sales team. It's possible that your inside sales team might use different steps or stages when they are creating a sales opportunity than when the outside team does. So what you can do is you can create in the opportunities under customization all the sales stages that you want. Then in the access profile, you can control which ones each team sees. So just for illustration, I'm going to turn off, I'll turn off presentation here. So remember that I turned off presentation out of the sales stages so that when we go in and look, we won't see it, okay? So those are all the other things you need to set and have control over in your access profile when you define it, all right? Then you save it. Once you save it, you go back to your users and you say, all right, well, I want Allison now to have the profile of inside sales team. Okay, and I'm also going to set Bob to have the same one. Okay, so now they each have a different access profile. Once you've done this, then your next step is to come over here and go to customization and user interface templates, UI templates. On the right, you will see all the different modules. And if I go to the account UI template, when I get here, I get a list of all my profiles. So for each access profile that you have, you can have a different user interface template, which means you could have different screen layouts. So I'm going to set one for the inside sales team. And when you go to it, it shows you the default layout here. And then I can start moving things around. Now I'm going to make things a little bit crazy just so you see the changes. So I'm going to move website over here, and I'm going to move owner over here, and I'm going to bring in sector and price level and product interest. And let's see, let's move company facts. Let's take company facts away just for this and move this over here. So I'm moving things around. I can lay these out any way that I want. Also under the field configurations tab, you control, number one, which fields are visible. Well, why is that one not turned on? And then you also can control whether a field is read-only to the user. So if, for example, you're putting data in that's informational data, for the sales rep, but you don't want the person to be able to change it, you can make a particular field read only. They can see the information, but they can't make a change to it. And then on the other side, you can make something required. So if someone is adding a new account, they must put in a name for the account, but maybe you also want them to control putting in what sector and type they are. Don't go crazy with this or you'll make your people crazy, but you might want to, be sure that you're capturing certain types of information that is important to the database. So once you do that, and then your report permissions should already be set because that was set in the access profile. So this should already be here, the way you set it. And then save it. It will tell you it's saved successfully. And then we log out. And I'm going to log in as Allison. So first of all, when I log in as Allison, over here, I don't see the sales module anymore. It's not there, plus all those extra modules. So those are not visible to her. When I open an account record, I should see the layout. Yep, here's website over here. Okay, here's price level, product interest. Now my sector and type fields didn't show up, so I must not have made those visible where they're supposed to be visible, so I have to go back and fix that. But you can see, that whatever layout I give, it comes up. So you can get pretty creative with this. Because you might have different people that you want them to see only certain pieces of information in the database. So by creating a custom access profile, setting it up, and then having them log in, they can see only certain fields of information, and then other people can see other fields of information. So, sit down and think through and, go a little bit creative on this because you can come up with some good ideas on how you want to do it. So here's Larry. So she's still seeing Larry because I told her that she could see Larry here. Now, if she opens a Larry record because she can see Larry, notice it's grayed out. She cannot, this is a shared record because it's not her record. And so she can see the information, but she cannot click in the field and edit it. However, if she wanted to add a new contact, then she could do that. Or she could add a new activity. So that's what, being able to see another person's record. Now, why is this screen blank? The screen is blank because I have not set up the user interface template for contacts. So I'd have to go back to settings and do that. So also even notice here, when you open Larry's record, you don't have a save and close down here or a save. You just have a cancel because you can only view the information. All right. So if I go back to settings, then I can go to my user interface templates again. Oops, I got to go out of Allison. So you can see you just kind of work your way down through the different settings. And if you do have a user that's your test user and you're logging in and out, then you can see the results of what you've done right away, which is helpful. So if I go back to customization, UI templates, and I go to the contact UI template, then I choose this one, it's not set up and saved. So all I need to do is basically come in here and save it, then it will be okay. So again, you have your field configurations, make sure your fields are checked that you want to see, and then save it. All right. Now, another thing I will mention here, you may or may not know this. This is relatively new, probably 4 or 5 months. But let me go back to the contact UI template. When you choose here your different templates, your access profiles, notice there's a base template here. When you click on that, this is in a sense a master template. So when you're first setting things up now, you can go to the base template and you can set up what you want for all of your different access profiles. And then once you save it, you can then say, well, I want to take this layout that I've created and I want to copy it to, and you choose the other access profiles you'd like to copy it to. What I usually recommend, just to make it quick and easy, when you're first setting up, is just click this check all, copy it to everything, unless you want something a little bit different, but you can copy it to everything and then save it. That means it's duplicated for all the templates. Then I could go to, say, Inside Sales Team, and I could put something else there. You know, maybe they want to know hobbies, and I could add that, or I could take away something and then save it. So the Inside Sales Team UI template would be different than the rest of them. So use this copy to, copy from. So if you already have things set up, you can copy from from this template to other templates, or from another template to this template. So use that. That if you have been around for a while, you might not be aware this is here. But for new people, you don't know that it wasn't ever here, so that's good. So use that. All right, so what else have we not covered here? We've talked about the user interface templates. We've created a custom access profile and applied it. And we've done the user interface template. So I guess I'm ready to ask if there are any questions that anyone has on what we've covered. So just as a review, when you first start, let's see, is there a way to make emails private when checking opens through the marketing module? The only thing now is, I'm not sure, and I'll have to investigate this, Venice. I'm not totally certain. And Linda, if you're still in the meeting here, I see your name and you have something to say here, put it in the chat window. But I think if you're set up as a individual user, when you go to the email tracking, you would see only those emails that you have sent out. You wouldn't see the other ones. I may be wrong, and I need to check on that and maybe get back with you on that, okay? But that's a good question. So, as a review, you must be an admin user to be able to do what we've been talking about. When you go to Settings, Users and Access, and pretty much the sequence is to add your, if you're going to use custom access profiles, sit down and think through what you want to do and create those and do all the settings in the profile that you want for that custom access profile. What modules you want people to see, what rights they have as far as creating records in each of the modules, what features they have access to and don't have access to. After you've set that up, if you want to create user groups, create and define your user groups so that you have those set up, and then you can add your users and assign them the profiles that you've created. You also would after you create your Access profiles, if you've created custom ones, go to your user interface templates and go down through all your different modules and do your screen layouts for that, okay? And then once you've got that set up, you can put your users in. And then test. Now, another one I will mention here under users and access, user types. These are things that actually feed into reports for sorting and organizing in your reports. And what you could do here, you could add a user group called region, and then you would be able to add that as a part of the user in the user's record. And so you could create a territory. You'd create like, well, wait a minute, I did that wrong. Let me go back here. So let's just say this is region A. And region B, or you could have territory names, you know, north, south, east, west, that kind of thing. When you go to your user record, and I'll use Allison again because she's at the top of the list here. See, I have user type 1. It'll ask me, and I can assign her to region A or region B. Then these will feed into a report where I might want to do a sales report and get a total for the numbers, sales numbers for all of the sales reps in region A versus region B. And so that can be brought in as well to allow you to do that in reports. These fields show up in your reports module and allow you to filter on them. You also can use filters for them as well. So that's one other access that you have here. Okay, so Linda's answered our question for us. Thank you, Linda. She's my implementation cohort, and she's also a support person too. All have the marketing, individual access users can have the marketing module, but they can only see their own campaigns, meaning their own emails. They cannot view others sent mail. That's what I thought. So that should answer your question, Venice, that if you're set as an individual, then you're only seeing your own emails that are sent out and not anyone else's, okay? But then someone who's set as all can see everything. Thank you, Linda. So, all right, if there are no other questions, then I guess I will let you go. Hopefully this has been helpful, and now you have some ideas on how you can go in and maybe be a little more creative in the setup of your database and what people can see and do in the database and how to do it and how to test it. So with that, I will go ahead and say have a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.